delighted that just a few days after its release, I have Anju from Drishyam 2 with us. So Ishita Dutta, firstly, a huge congratulations on Drishyam, and my God, I mean the film is doing so well already at the box office and the response alike. So tell me, what is going through your mind at this current stage of life?
Firstly, thank you so much. I think, of course, we saw the film, we knew it was a good film, people are going to like it. But to be very honest, I didn't think I'd receive such kind of a reaction. Like for the last 3 days, it's just been crazy. My phone is constantly ringing with friends whom I have not spoken to for so many years. I have been like sending me snapshots of the film, of their ticket, and they're like, we are loving the film, and the response is like fabulous. So I'm really enjoying this right now. I am loving the fact that people are loving it.
So how
Yeah.
has doing a film like Drishyam really changed your perception and the way you view justice and the decisions people take to protect their families?
I think, see, honestly, like this is a film, but leaving that apart, I think if somebody has done something wrong, justice needs to be done. That is something which is very clear. It's not that we are saying that try to escape a situation and try to bury things that you have done wrong. So we're not saying that. It's just a film. But yes, in the film that you will see how Meera, she's right on her side because it's ultimately her son. Even
Yep.
if he was trying to do something wrong and everything happened accidentally, she's right on her side. The father is right because he knew that if it would come out, there is no chance that they would be safe because he was the son of a very powerful person. So even if he was wrong and it happened accidentally, it would be proven otherwise, right? We
Mhm.
would still end up in jail. So his point of protecting us was just the fact that nobody's going to believe them. Like
Yep.
nobody's going to believe that it was not intentional. So yes, a lot of people have asked me this, but again, I keep telling them that no, we're not trying to say that you should escape, you should call the police or do something like that. It's just a film, and
Yep.
it's really interesting that even if we are kind of ethically wrong, you still kind of support because you somewhere you understand why father is doing that to protect his family.
And do you know what I find very interesting actually? Just I just realized this that your first Hindi film, which was Drishyam, stars Ajay Devgn, and your partner Vatsal's
Yes,
first Hindi film had Ajay Devgn, Tarzan the
yes,
Water. So it's very interesting how Ajay Devgn's played a bit of a pivotal role in your life, and
in
uh,
our lives, yes.
yeah, so it's very interesting. But I think, look, when you were approached for Drishyam and when you decided to do the film, what was the brief given to you? I mean, did you actually watch the original Malayalam film in the first place as a reference point, or were you conscious of
Not,
watching it?
not at all. When Drishyam was offered, so I'll tell you what happened. I had just finished my first television show, and my manager calls me and she's like, "Okay, there's this film. You have to play a 16-year-old." And I started laughing. I said, "I don't think I can play a 16-year-old schoolgirl. I just played somebody's wife on television." And they said, "Why don't you just come? We'll see." I went with two ponytails, with a backpack, in a school uniform, and I was laughing throughout because I just found it very funny. Anyways, I'm very happy that the audition part went really well. And the next day, I went on set and started shooting. So I had no idea what Drishyam was. I had not seen the Malayalam version. I had no idea what world I was getting into. And obviously, like this film will become such a big hit. And I'm so glad that it just happened for me. And honestly, that time Nishi sir, who's no more, he was the director of Drishyam
Yeah,
one, and
yes.
he told me that Ishita, please don't watch the film. I want you to get your version of Anju. I don't want you to, it happens sometimes when you see a film, it's, you kind of take something from it and you try it like subconsciously to replicate it. He wanted me to be like a different person, not what we saw in the Malayalam version. So I had not seen the film till the time my film released. So I
Yeah.
saw Drishaman after that. Yeah.
Oh wow.
So
Okay.
yeah,
That's really interesting. And I think, what, I'm glad you mentioned Ishikant sir because I think I really missed him actually. I think we all did when we
we
were
all did.
watching Drishyam too. But I think Abhishek did a very good job.
He
Uh,
did a fab job. Yeah.
I mean, these are big shoes to fill, and I think he definitely lived up to the job. But in terms of the Drishyam too, because obviously it's more of like the cat and mouse chase intensifies a lot as we saw in the film. And I mean, I've actually seen the original Malayalam film because it streamed direct
Mhm.
on Prime Video at the time. I think it was last year. Um,
Last year.
yeah, so I think this time round, because obviously what we see here is Anju. gets epileptic fits. She gets seizures. And we can see that the whole incident has really taken a toll on her mental health. But when you are exploring such a dark space, because Drishyam is a very intense film, was there ever a point in you as an actor where you had to kind of rely on a very dark past in your life, which helped you to perhaps bring out those emotions as authentically?
Not really. I think for me the most difficult part was the fits because there's a very thin line. I didn't want to overdo it. I mean, I wanted it to be as authentic as possible. So when I got to know, of course, even I saw the Malayalam version, so I knew, okay, this is what the character is going to demand. And once I met Abhishek sir, and he sent me a lot of references. We did a lot of takes before we actually went on shoot because he wanted it in a certain way. He didn't want it to be over. He didn't want it to be under. And very weirdly, I mean, unfortunately, I was shooting for my show just before I started shooting for Drishyam 2. And there's a person on my set who actually got fits in front
Oh,
of me.
oh God.
And for the first 5 seconds, like none of us realized what's happening because we were not aware of his situation. And to see that in front of me, I mean, I can't even explain in words. It's such a sad illness to have because it's like the person completely goes out of control. But anyways, that incident kind of became like um, reference point for me. And I immediately called Abhishek sir and I was like, the weirdest thing happened. I've actually witnessed it in person. And it is so strange that a week later I was supposed to perform the same thing. So yeah, I think
Yeah.
for me, challenging was that bit to play it as authentic as possible.
And I think, this year it's been quite, the box office collections haven't been quite favorable to, Hindi films, which have been remakes of South films. But I
Yeah,
think Drishyam 2 has been a huge exception. And,
yeah.
Ishita, you've worked in South, I think, in the early stages of your career, I think,
Early stage.
right? Do you think that the reason why perhaps Drishyam 2 is doing well is perhaps because they've not, Bollywood fied it too much in that sense, where they've kind of stuck to that humanness and that grit that the original film sort of retains? Do you think that's why it's working well? What do you think is the reason that seems to be an exception for this film in comparison to the others?
I think one of the major reasons would be that it's a sequel of a film that became so popular 7 years back. And I think 2nd October, 3rd October, that kind of became such a big thing that over the years, in the last 7 years, I don't remember any year on 2nd October that I've not received thousands of messages and thousands of
Yeah,
forwards.
yeah,
So I somehow people have not forgotten this film in the last 7 years. And with this year, the remake, the second part coming, I think it just refreshed everybody's memory. And also the thing that nobody expected a second part could even be made because the first part had such a beautiful closure, like it
yeah.
ended right. And so you can never imagine, like when I heard, I was like, what can they possibly make for the second part? Is it going to be justified? Is it going to be as good as the first part? And they have done it. They have nailed it. And now, I mean, what we are hearing is there's a third part apparently, which is
Oh, wow.
being made in the Malayalam version. Like that's what I've heard. I have no official confirmation as yet, but that's what I've heard. So now the next question is that now what possibly can you show in the third part? I think the brilliance is the writing of
Mhm,
this film. Like
mhm.
how it's technically, like nobody can come out of the theater and be like, no, this is wrong. This is not possible. Somehow it all makes sense. Somehow it just like works so well together. And I think that's why people love the film so much, that it is, of course, it's fiction, but it's so real. The characters are so real, and you kind of like, just it just makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, this is literally Gare Murde wo Kharna, like quite a literal sense, I think.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
it'll be interesting, actually. I actually have a feeling that maybe in the third Drishyam, what could possibly happen is that Mira is out of the question now because obviously they seem to have had their closure. Like obviously, because obviously in the second film, we see that the body parts is sent to them, and obviously they have that closure. So I actually am really curious. I mean, what do you think? Well, I mean, it will be wonderful to hear your perspective. What do you think
So
the third Drishyam
people
would?
have been asking me. I'm like, see, I was in school back then. Now they're showing that they're looking for a boy for me. So probably in the next film, I'll be married. That's what I feel the journey of my character is going to be. But I don't know what's actually going to happen because honestly, I can't even imagine what possibly can happen. And that's what makes everybody so curious about the third part already, while the
Yeah.
second is just out. So I think that's the beauty of this film, that the curiosity is so much to know
Mm.
what next.
And I think again, this Drishyam is very special because I think, if I'm not mistaken, I think it's been what 20 years since both Ajay Devgn and Akshay Khanna have come together in a film. Like obviously Divangi was their last movie I think that they did
I think yeah.
together. Yeah, so obviously it was a very special occasion in that sense, and you were working very closely with both of them. You had quite a few scenes with all of them. So as a daughter and as someone in a very vulnerable space, how much what helped you, I think, in those sequences of working with them and being that very timid and scared, girl?
I think, of course, when you're working with actors who are so brilliant, who are so good, I think there's certain level of intimidation that naturally comes where you are like a little bit, like, oh, like the one thing that keeps going in my mind is that, oh my God, I have to give this shot right. There shouldn't be a retake because of me. So I think I kind of give it my 100, 200,000% to make sure that I am doing my job, even if it's my back and it's not my face. I am so much into it that I just want to like soak it on all in. And also, experience was great. When you've seen the film, so there's a
Yeah.
scene where they all are there together, and
Mm.
just to see the dynamics and how they work together, and each kind of holding their own space. Like if you see, you can't say who's better than the other. Like they all are so good. Like I'm talking about Akshay sir, Ajay sir, and Tabu ma'am. It's just like brilliant to just be in that space and just to see them perform. I think for me it's been a
Yeah.
great experience, such a learning experience for me.
Yes. And actually, on a more serious note, actually, Ishita, because even though again we were talking about the ethically challenges that the film's central plot holds, I do also think that what the film does, it's quite relevant, I think, to our society right now as well, because as you know, there's so many atrocities against women. I mean, there was a recent case of a girl named Shraddha who was mercilessly killed, and so many incidents this year, not in just in India, but in UK as well, where there's been so many ghastly crimes against women. And I think what Anju goes through is also something which is very horrible, and a lot of women go through in our society. But do you think that the film has also made you very aware of the sort of crimes that women face in today's era? And how do you think a film like Drishyam can, perhaps in a way, I mean, obviously, of course, not to kill anyone. Of course, that's not the message that anyone ever wants to give out, but perhaps gives them that strength, I guess, in a way to kind of, um, you know, to actually confront the perpetrator and to get justice. How do you think that's helped you?
I think it's very important. I think not just this film, I would say there are a lot of films that have been made in the past. We can talk about Behzad's film. I mean, it just came a
Thursday.
couple of months
Yeah.
back. I think it's really nice that such films are coming out because it gives it empowers women to kind of see that it's not their fault. The problem with our society is that it's always portrayed as it's your fault. You went there at the wrong time. You were wearing the wrong clothes. I mean, it's such a sad scenario that people still
Yeah.
talk like that. it you
Yes.
know it doesn't matter what you're wearing, where you are, what the time is, if you're alone or not. It's just wrong, and
Mhm.
you should not feel ashamed. You should talk about it, and only when you talk about it and people face the repercussion of what they do, is when people are going to stop doing it. We
Yeah.
need to have stricter laws. We need to make sure that the culprit is getting punished, and not after 10, 15 years, immediately. It's very important to kind of give them like justice immediately. What happens sometimes in India, at least what I've seen, that some cases just go on like forever, and it's too late. By then,
Mhm.
the girl's life is almost spoiled. So I think that the general perception has to change. Women and men both have to be educated. The law has to change. It has to be strict, and I think we need to speak up more often and talk about these issues, so that women feel that it's okay to come out and go to the cops and complain. I mean,
Right.
that's just it's like a cycle, and
Yeah.
I hope there's some change soon in our society.
And I think when you have examples in your own household as well of people who are very strong, of women who are very
Yeah,
strong and have literally taken down an entire system, I think that must
yeah,
even inspire you even more, I'm sure. It must give you that
yes,
sense of strength from within as well. So I think it's
yes,
wonderful to sort of see that. But I think, look, it's been what, almost, I think it's been a decade actually this year since you've been in the acting field, right? Because your
yes,
first film, which
yeah,
was in Telugu, that came out in 2012.
yeah.
So how would you say, over these years, your perception or perhaps your craft has kind of evolved over these 10 years?
A lot. I remember in Drishyam 1 when I went on set, I was Like when people ask me, how did you perform? What did you think? I don't think so. I thought so much. I just went with the flow. There was just like, it was just things were happening. But
Yeah.
now, 10 years later, I feel, there's a lot of thought put into each and every action that I do. There's more maturity about it. I think as a person, I'm more confident than I was 10 years back. With each project that I do, I think that kind of, it adds a new dimension in my character and in my life. So definitely a lot of change, and I hope it keeps growing, and I hope I keep doing better projects.
Right. And I think what's also fascinating about your career trajectory is, of course, you had the South films that you started with. Then, of course, you did Ek Ghar Banaunga, which I actually used to watch, by the way. My mom used to love
Oh,
that show on Star Plus. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So it was a
yeah.
very, I mean, it did really, I mean, it was a popular show. I mean, people still remember it. So, it's very interesting how you literally began with television, and then you sort of went to do films, and then you also went back to do Rishto Ka Saudagar as well after Drishyam. So, the career trajectory has been very dynamic in comparison, because how
Yeah.
people usually do it is they start off with television, they'll go into films. So, do you feel like sometimes an opportunity is very tough to get? Do you think that the trajectory that you've had is due to lack of opportunity, or do you think it's just been something you've been consciously choosing to do?
I think for me, I always say this at any particular given point, I see the kind of projects that are offered to me, and I go with the best script, the best story, and the best thing for me. Now, it doesn't matter whether it's a film or if it's television, and I'm not saying that it was the right decision or not. I mean, we'll never know, but that's
Yeah.
how I have taken my life. After
Mhm.
Drishyam, I got a lot of film offers, but it was the same thing, and I didn't want to do the same thing. I didn't want to play a daughter in every film because Drishyam happens only once. Not all the films are going to
Mm,
be like that. So then I got a lot of very good television offers, and that's how I decided to do that. In between, I got Firangi. I did a couple of films again. Where I felt, okay, the film was good, it's something interesting and I should be a part of it. I did Blank and Setters. So then I started doing films again. And then again I went. So I have always followed the best project that I have in hand, and then I just follow it. So I am not someone who would just leave everything and just wait. I feel instead I'd rather do something, and with, like I said, with every project you learn. So whatever I am today is because of whatever I've learned in all those things. And I think I'm going to continue this. So after this, like one thing that I really want to do is web, because I've not really done anything on
mm,
in that space. And I think they have great content and they have great directors and writers, and I would love to work with them. But having said that, if I get something which is very interesting in television now, again, I would do it. Like I would do whatever is the best for me.
right. That's wonderful to hear. And I think because, like I said, the South, there's such an influx of South movies now, and I think it's wonderful to finally see that sort of, become the new commercial in a way. But do you think that, Ishita, because obviously you began, in fact, there's been a lot of actresses who actually began their careers with South films. And obviously then they sort of moved into Hindi. But do you think that because of the mass popularity that South films are getting, do you think your career would have been different had you maybe perhaps debuted in a South film now at this point in life? It's a bit of
See,
a
I
wild
I
question.
genuinely feel no, no, I feel that the industry today is so much different. All the newcomers who are coming in now, I think they are very lucky. I feel, and I'm sure when I started doing films and television, my sister said you're very lucky that you're starting now, because
Mhm.
back then when my sister started, things were very different. So I think every 10 years it keeps changing,
Yeah.
and I like that now things have opened up where people who do web are doing films, film people are doing web, they're going on TV. There's like this entire thing where it's all treated as one industry instead of, oh, that is TV, or oh, that's web, and we can't work with a web actor. I think that was there like 10 years back. It's not now. So I feel all the girls who are coming in right now, they have a greater chance. The kind of content that's coming in today is so much different. It's
Mhm.
not just about dancing around in beautiful saris and in some hill station. It's so much more than that. Especially for a girl, she's no longer just eye candy. There's a proper role that is offered to even women right now. So of course, it's very good for people who are starting right now, but it's good for us too. I think a lot of actors from 10 years back who had stopped working are coming back, and I think that's great. So in general, I
True.
feel industry right now, it's the best, because we have such talented actors who are so brilliant, have done so much work in the past, and they were not doing anything for the last 10, 15 years, and now you get to see them again on web, on films, and it's great to see that. So I really like the industry right now.
I'm glad you mentioned this actually, because even if you mentioned Bezu's film A Thursday, I think if we look this year, the style of female roles that have come out, many of them have been very great. I mean, you have Tabu Mam's example as well in Bhul Bhulaiya, then obviously Deepika in Gehraiyan, so many great roles, Yami in A Thursday. So it's wonderful to see this sort of grayness. And how important is it, do you think, for you as an actor to explore the gray shade at this point in your career as well? Do you kind of think that that's the sort of role that maybe can perhaps change the game for you in
Oh
terms of?
my God, I have been wanting to do something negative for the last 3 4 years, and I've been telling makers, so whenever they offer me the positive, I'm like, okay, forget about that. But what's the negative thing like? I know I look a certain way, but I feel with a negative character, there's so much that you can play. There's like you can really go out of the box and
Mm.
experiment, which I am like craving and dying to do, and I hope I get to do that. But yeah, as of now, I've not really played. I've mostly played a girl next door, somebody who's very simple and sweet, and I think I really really want to break that image. I really want to change that.
Yeah, I mean, arguably Blank was a bit of an exception though, where you kind of
Blank,
played like
yes,
a cop. So that
yeah, yeah,
kind of was a bit more of a badass role in
slightly different.
comparison.
That's probably the only project where I play slightly, yeah, a gray character, but otherwise it's just been sweet simple girl.
Yeah. And honestly, Ishita, I cannot help but just go back to what you said about, your sister, how she said to you that, you're very lucky to make it, to enter the industry at this point of your of time. Obviously she has gone through a lot in the industry. I mean, everyone is very aware, and I think it's commendable the way she has come out and spoken about Me Too in India and really kicked it off. But in terms of the struggles that she's gone through, in terms of the hustles she's had to face, the stuff that she's had to go through, how much of that has been a lesson for you? I mean, what have you learned from her perhaps in this journey she's had?
I think everything. I would probably say all the decisions that I made because I was in college. So I literally saw her. I was in Bombay, I was studying. So I kind of saw her graph, whatever happened with her, how she dealt with it, and how it changed her life. So I think that was always an example for me of what decisions to make, what not to make. And she would always say, learn from my mistakes. You have a live example right in front of you, and at the same time she also said don't be scared of making mistakes. You might still end up making some because you have your own journey. So I feel in my life, what the way I think, the decisions I take, I am very glad that I had an elder sister to kind of guide me,
Mm.
and her life has been like an example to me, and she's always been very supportive. In fact, the decision of starting my career with television was something that a lot of people were quite against it. They were all telling me not to
Yes.
do this. It's not a
Mm.
right idea, but then I went with it. I was like, she's like, you need to learn. So I feel if I got Drishyam 1 is because probably whatever I learned in the TV show that I did, I was probably prepared for that character.
Yeah.
You know, so she's like, had you not done that, you would probably be so raw and you would probably not be a good actor and you wouldn't get this part. So I'm very glad that at that point I didn't understand, but I'm very happy that I did because, as you grow older, I think you kind of understand, why certain people said certain things. So she's
Yeah.
definitely been a big guide in my life.
And again, you also mentioned how literally actors we haven't seen from 10 years, we're now seeing them. And quite
Yes.
often, what I've seen is that whether it's the web or television, they've always done justice to such actors who perhaps, have done Bollywood debuts, have done their silver screen debuts, and they've done a few films. Whether or not they've been good in acting is a different matter. But, they've had an opportunity, but sadly, things haven't worked out. But yet, when it comes on television, they do very well. And they've become very household names. So do you think television in a way and web has been perhaps a second lease of life for such actors as well? Do you think that that's
Yeah,
what
I
it is?
think yes. I think actresses, yes. With television also, if you see, it's very female centric. Films, whereas it's mostly male centric. I wouldn't say there are not female centric films. Of course, there are, but somehow, I mean, I understand maybe they don't make it because the audience is such that they would probably not go to the theaters. I mean,
Mm,
ultimately, a maker is also making a film to make money. So the end result is that the audiences should come. So that's where I feel web is great. It's somewhere in between. It's not television. It's not film. It's like there are web films, and I really feel the ratings for all the women centric films, web shows are very good. That's why there are more and more people who are making films like that. So yes, I think web space and television space is definitely very good for female actresses.
Yeah. And I think a question that I always ask actors who began from television, is that even though, barriers are breaking down and even though we're recognizing actors for actors, there's still that notion of actors who, began with TV of still being called TV actor. There's still that tag that comes along with it, which is a very big shame because, acting hota hai.
Exactly.
Have you
Thank you.
ever
I always say that.
Yeah,
Acting,
exactly.
acting hota hai.
But it's true, right? I mean, it just makes
Yeah.
sense. So how have you ever faced that sort of stereotyping? Have you ever faced that bracketing? And do you think that it's changed now or is changing because of the emergence of the web and perhaps the perceptions that people now have of entertainment generally?
I think it is changing. I wouldn't say it has changed a lot. And personal experience, yes, a zillion times where I have been told that I think probably a newcomer has a better chance than you getting a certain job in a film because you've done television.
Yeah.
So it didn't really matter whether I did a good job, whether I acted well. It was just because of the fact that I was exposed in television. I will not be able to do this. So I used to be very disappointed because I would be like, but we are actors. How it shouldn't matter. Like you said, it shouldn't matter. Acting hoti hai. Now whatever platform I do, whether I'm a theater actor or a person who does ad films or a person who does television, if I fit your role, if I do a good job, why shouldn't I get it? But anyways, I mean, I didn't really let it bother me that much. I continued with my life, but I really feel it's changing now. Now you see a lot of television actors, like even I'm saying that, but a lot of people who've done television are now doing web, are doing films, and they are doing a very good job, and they're getting a lot of projects. So I think it's changing, but there's a long way to go.
Right, right. Long way to go indeed. But I think on a final note, and I know that, again, like I always say, it's a very challenging question to ask actors as to what's next because I'm sure हम सभी फिराक में होते हैं कि हमारा next gig क्या होगा. But do you have any other projects lined up? What can we look forward to from your next post Drishyam?
So definitely something with me and Vatsal. So we have been trying to do something together. There was something we were supposed to start, but because of lockdown and everything, it all got pushed. But hopefully, it's going to start somewhere next year. It's going to be either a web film or theatrical. I'm not sure as of now, but that I'm very excited about because I get to work with Vatsal again.
Mhm.
Apart from that, the other things are still in the pipeline. I've still not signed, so I don't really know what next. But I'm pretty excited with the response of Drishyam. I hope there are good projects coming my way, and I'm just looking forward and waiting for next year now.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because even though, like, Drishyam released like 7 years back, so even though people remember, but perhaps it went towards the back of their mind and it just became a distant memory. But with Drishyam 2, it
Yeah.
sort of acts as a reminder, doesn't it, to audiences? Ke, Ishita
Yes.
Datta hai
Yes.
abhi. Main still, I'm
Yeah.
still here,
I'm
right?
there. Hello.
No, but look, it's been so wonderful, Ishita. I think, look, your performance was great in Drishyam. I loved the film. Can't stop thinking about
Thank
it,
you.
can't stop talking about it. And I think the audiences are pretty much doing the same, and the box office collections reflect that. So, huge congratulations and wishing you all the very best for this film
Thank
and
you.
for
Thank you
upcoming
so
projects.
much.
Thank you. Thank you,
Thank you.
Ishita. Thank you.